This tutorial goes over solving linear equations. The process that we use for solving linear equations is opposite operations, and it is done in the order of BIDMAS backwards. Recall, BIDMAS stands for brackets, indices, division, multiplication, addition and subtraction. So we would look for a subtraction or an addition and undo that to start off with. Then we'd look for a multiplication or a division and undo that. Look for the indices, undo that. Look for a bracket, undo that. Now, the opposite operations that we use, if we find a subtraction, then we are going to undo it by using an addition. If we find an addition, we undo it using a subtraction. If we have a multiplication, we undo it by using a division. And a division is undone by using a multiplication. These are our opposite operations. For the purpose of linear equations, you will not have any indices to undo, so I have not included those in this tutorial. The last thing is to undo a bracket. Now, if you have successfully undone a subtraction, addition, multiplication, and division, and then you're left with your brackets, normally speaking, that can just cancel out. After you've done all of that, you may be left with a negative. Now, by a negative, I'm referring to something like, maybe you might have negative 1x. Now, to undo that negative 1, we don't plus 1x, because we're not dealing with a minus, we're dealing with a negative 1. So, the opposite of negative 1x is actually to times by negative 1. So when I times by negative 1, a negative and a negative is going to become a positive, and this is just going to leave me with a positive x, which is perfect for what I'm trying to get, which is x by itself, or my unknown pronumeral letter by itself. Now the steps. So what I should do every time I'm asked to solve a linear equation. Step 1. If a negative exists, you need to bracket it. What I mean by this is if you have negative x, put in the 1, the x, and put a bracket around that negative 1. That's a starting point and not a minus. So we're just doing this so we're really clear in that this isn't a minus, it is a negative. Another example of this is x divided by negative 3. Again, that denominator is a negative, so I'm going to put a bracket around it. This is just so that in order of operations, I'm not going to muck something up. So it's very easy to say, well, let's plus x, or let's plus 3. Okay, when we're not going to be plussing 3, we're instead going to be timesing by negative 3. Step 2 is if a fraction exists, you need to bracket the numerator. So for instance, if I have something like x minus 3 divided by 5, then you need to bracket the numerator or the top number or expression. Another example, 3 minus 2x divided by 4x, you need to bracket your numerator. Basically what this means is that as I go through BIDMAS backwards, I can't touch what's inside that bracket until I've done, or until I've dealt with that fraction. Alright, so it's giving me an order of operations where the brackets come last, hence we won't accidentally do that in the wrong order. After you've put your brackets in for a negative and for a fraction, your last step is then to apply BIDMAS backwards using opposite operations. That will allow you to solve a linear equation. The next tutorials will go over examples on how to do this.